right. We are here. We're about 10 minutes late. Not a problem at all. And here we are again with Autumn here. Hi, Autumn.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, we skipped a few weeks, I believe, because I was out on conferences. And yeah, I'm actually currently working on those videos for conference coverage. So expect some of those videos in near future, I hope. And for now, we wanted to still do the podcast and cover vast topics that we can on here. So a weekly podcast is what we try to do here. And every Monday, 9 p.m. is what we typically target. Whereas, sometimes that may not happen. So we'll try to do better consistency here. But thank you, Autumn, for joining again this week. And we have today, the topic is basically computer hardware and computers for architecture and design. So, without further ado, I did want to kind of open up asking questions. And I welcome any questions from all of you who may be watching. And also, if you have any further questions, please do feel free to leave comments or in the chat to see if you can. If you're wondering something about, I would love to answer you. And in general, I just wanted to cover this topic because I felt that in a lot of architecture and the design field, people kind of lack the understanding of their tool. In this case, it will be a computer. Unfortunately, I guess the metaphor that I try to use is, as a racer or race car driver, they would know where or how the engine is made and what kind of engine that they're driving. And as a painter, you would know what kind of brush that they're using and what kind of animal hair they are using for that specific brush. Whereas nowadays, in this day and age, all the architects and interior designers moved on from typical pencil and pen type of media, and they now use computer like ourselves. And unfortunately, some people lack the understanding of, or perhaps it's a complex thing. I understand, but still don't fully understand everything about computer. And I don't boast in knowing everything, but perhaps I know a little bit more. Therefore, I can kind of do a better explanation. And it is very complicated, and there's a lot of model numbers and technical terms that are difficult to understand. So I do completely understand where everybody's coming from, but I think we should be better at understanding our tool of the everyday machines that we deal with. Other than, I don't know, when in doubt, just restart the darn thing and hope it works. I don't think that works every time. It does work pretty well, but yeah, the rate of that, yeah, I hope to improve your situation, whatever the setup that you guys have. So that's the reason why that we decided to do this topic. And I understand, Autumn, you're also kind of trialing different type of setup and seeing which one works better for you. And hopefully throughout this session or this topic, I'm able to just kind of enlighten you in some matters that you had the question marks on. um, I have some slideshows prepared. I have some fun activity prepared, so we're gonna kind of go through it. But why don't we kick it off with the fun activity first, and we see where we are. Are you okay with that?
Yes, that sounds great.
All
I will
right.
say I'm guilty. I don't know much about my computer. I just know that I need one that works with all my software.
Well, let's hope to improve that little bit. So here we go. I'm gonna share my screen, and so the backstory of this is I asked the Chat GPT, can you just create um, basic 20 questions about computer hardware? So it created the computer hardware quiz. I just had to copy and paste those questions in here. I intentionally did not look at these questions. So I will get them wrong. I can tell you that. It is most basic thing, but I hope to not to embarrass myself and get many wrong. But I figured I may get a couple of them wrong. But we got 20 total questions. But I'm gonna ask you to first give me perhaps an answer for each question,
Okay.
and I'm gonna put my answer and then see who got it right. How
Okay.
about that? All right.
Perfect.
So the first question is, what is the primary function of the motherboard?
Okay. First thing that comes to mind is possibly store operating system.
Okay, that would be incorrect.
Oh,
The motherboard is often called also main board as well. So motherboard, main board, they're kind of interchangeable term.
okay.
And actually, why don't I do this? This is one of the slides that I had prepared, but this is a snapshot of my older computer. I have it up back there. I just didn't feel like hauling out and then just showing it on a tiny frame of this camera, so prepared a picture for it. Motherboard is actually what's back there, and everything connects to it, and that's where I'm kind of leading you into. So
Okay.
motherboard is this big thing, or I guess the little circuit board that is behind everything, and a CPU and graphics card and everything just kind of connects to it. So I kind of gave you the answer there. So it does not store an operating system, but it connects all the hardware, and that's what the motherboard is. But very good. Let's move on to the next.
Okay.
The question is, which device is used to move the cursor on the screen? This is actually fun.
I'm like, is it a speaker? No, I'm just kidding. It's a mouse.
Yep, that's a good answer. Which component is often called the brain of the computer?
Oh, RAM? Is it RAM? I might be getting most of these wrong, but
It would be CPU.
CPU.
Yes,
Ah,
yes.
dang.
It's a processing unit, and yeah, it's a brain. But I mean, people may consider things slightly differently. A
What
RAM
is
might be a brain.
what does CPU stand for?
Central processing unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
C, I'm not 100% sure, but it is a processing unit of some kind.
Okay.
Good question.
Thanks.
Well, what type of memory is lost when computer is turned off?
Oh no.
This is a little difficult.
Oh.
I'll give you this one.
I was like, it's probably RAM because I chose RAM last time.
Yeah, good strategy there. Yeah, it is RAM. But I mean, who knows? I might be wrong. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. What does GPU stand for?
Oh. Graphical processing unit.
Nice, well done. By the way, I guess even if we get all of the answers, I suppose it's not going to explain anything unless I do. So I figured I should kind of explain little things as we go. So ROM is typically not a terminology that we use these days, CD-ROM. And I can't tell you what it stands for, but it is basically CD-ROM is basically your CD, and it stores data. And SSD is a solid state drive, which is a different type of storage device. You've heard of hard drives, which is often hard disk drive. HDD versus SSD are two most common type of storage devices that go on your computer. So we used to use a lot more. The solid state drives did not exist in the past, let's say 15, 20 years ago. So the typical storage media has been HDD or hard disk drive. But and all of three are storage devices, whereas RAM is a memory. And to just kind of give you a little picture, we're going to go back to this one. These little sticks that are on here are often called memories, And memories are different from storages. Memory are like temporary thing, and um, it stores things very shortly as it receives inside of the brain. So as you have a longer storage device. Actually, there's a solid state drive right here under my cursor. And then that needs to be read and gone to this memory stick. And then the brain that is under these hose like things, CPU will process it and then spit it back out. So it kind of but this is more of a temporary storage. The way we kind of, or metaphor that I tend to use is it's like your pocket or tool belt, whereas the long term storages are like shells, but things that you use very often in your working manner, then you want to keep them close to yourself. So memories or RAMs are your tool belt or pocket, so you can quickly take it out and use it. Whereas your long-term storage will kind of store all of the data so that you can run back, but it'll be much slower for you to get access to. So
Gotcha.
that's probably the best sort of metaphor I can do. And that's why RAM is not your long-term storage, and it does not store data when it loses the power,
Okay.
because it's not meant for to remember everything. And
Is
then you go ahead.
all is so all of that, can that only be in your computer, or is it also like within a laptop? Like, so say my laptop that I carry, does it have all of that just kind of in a microdose of that in the
Um,
laptop?
your computer, your laptop, will most likely have solid state drive, because one of the benefit of solid state drive is a hard drive. But I don't. People use hard drive, but I don't like using that term because it's no longer hard drive anymore. It is actually called solid state, and people often refer to as a storage.
Okay.
And storage is basically in a laptop these days or your phone. Everything will be solid state drive or SSD, and they're much smaller. They're a lot more durable and reliable than hard disk drive, because hard disk has a hard disk that spins around. And when things, these are actually spinning at a very high speed. It's like faster than uh, I don't know. It's generating a basically a tornado inside of a little thing. And when you're moving that around, I mean, imagine like you have something spinning and then you drop it or do something with it.
Yeah.
This is gonna spin and just break. And that was the problem before when you have like the first gen iPod. It actually had a spinning disc inside, and that will break very often because people do carry these things. And I don't know if you're ever a CD listener, but those portable CD readers have
Yeah.
problem when you move them around as you're listening, because that darn thing is spinning around. So yeah, in a portable devices, solid state drive is much more suitable. So it's quite unlikely nowadays that laptops have hard disk drives in them. It's
Okay.
been graduated about for 10 years now.
Oh,
And
wow.
but before that, or some laptops that require a lot more storage, because hard drive is actually better at storing more data. It's not faster, but more data. So some configuration might have hard disk drive, but I have not seen them in a long time. So it is likely, but all computers will have any means of RAM or storage. So you'll probably have both on your laptop, but not ROM or ROM. CD-ROM. Nobody has CD-ROMs on their computers these days. So and probably not likely on your laptop. Your desktop might have HDD or hard disk drives, but your laptop would just have these two.
Gotcha.
All right. Next one, you already got the correct answer. Let's move on to which device outputs sound from your computer.
Speaker.
Good choice. I think that's self-explanatory. What does oh there you go. Does a hard disk drive do?
You just told me this.
Good. We're learning.
If I get this wrong, this looks bad. Stores data
Yep.
permanently.
So it's just different type of storage device where you can store in a shelf. Good, you're learning. Which of these is not typically an internal computer part? Okay.
Power supply.
No, incorrect. It will be
Oh.
USB drive.
Oh, is it
Because,
separate? That's this like a separate.
yeah, well, when, I think if it said like USB port, and
Mm.
that, I think that's what you're thinking. USB port is internal, I guess. But USB drive, meaning external drive, I guess those are kind of interchangeable. With your thumb drive or external drive or USB drive, they're just kind of interchangeable terms. Yeah, is not an internal part. It's something that you put it and plug it into your machine. Power supply, however, looks like this. Or power supply is under here, where all
Looks very
the,
important.
yes, and it's usually internal to the machine. In a laptop, it is arguable whether that is an internal component. So I think you were in correct direction because on a laptop you get a power brick and that is a power supply and that's usually outside of the machine. So yes, it is kind of arguable, but I know this question was leading to the USB drive. I mean, it's ChatGPT. Who knows?
It was a trick question.
It is a trick question. What is ROM used for? Do I
This
have
one's
this completely wrong? ROM is.
is it temporary memory?
I don't think it's temporary though. It's a CD-ROM. CD-ROM is not considered temporary memory. I would think,
Graphics rendering, I know it's a graphics card, right?
right. And boosting internet speed will be your modem or
Yeah,
um I would think that is the correct answer.
the permanent
Yeah.
storage.
I
Mm.
think CD-ROM, and I'm not 100% sure on this one, but when it says ROM, I'm keep thinking CD-ROM, but I'm sure it also means some storage device as a ROM as well. So
Mm.
I'm gonna say that's actually this one. Which component cools down the computer?
The heat sink or fan. I have
Yeah.
seen multiple fans, and then you can color. There's like lights within the fans.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
how to be fancy, and it's like color stripes on your car. You know, it makes it look cool and make it
Yes.
look like it's going faster.
Yes.
Yeah. What does
That's kind of cool. I
yeah
mean, you can like customize it.
yeah people love doing that, and that's certainly that what people do. And these three fans up there are LED capable, so you can like coordinate. And that is a thing, absolutely a thing that people do. It's just that me being boring, I just like the subtle black, no color on my machines. But you can do whatever you want to do. And I'm probably gonna get this one wrong too. But what does HDMI stand for?
Oh, I use this every single day.
I just know HDMI, but I never looked
Um,
at the definitions. And I'm not looking up. I'm just chatting here for my live viewers here.
I want to say it's oh, high definition media interface.
That is my guess as well, because other ones do not fit the bill.
No.
What type of hardware is webcam? Oh,
Mm.
interesting. Interesting way to ask that.
My mind says output device, but it depends because you might have a webcam. I mean, you can get a separate webcam, but your computer comes with a webcam as well.
Right.
Some, not all.
Right. Typically, peripherals are considered input device. So everything is perspective from the machine. So
Okay.
think about external webcam. That if you buy a webcam,
Hmm.
Potentially, like you have a box of webcam, and
Hmm.
if you open it up and actually get the webcam set up, you plug it into the computer, right?
Yep.
So it's inputting all the displays and the sound from webcam onto the computer. Therefore, it's considered input device, or at least that's what I think. Which of the following is the fastest type of storage? I kind of gave you this.
Mm, SSD.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, you're learning. Yeah, floppy disk is very slow. CD-ROM is faster. Hard drive disks are faster. Hard disks are faster, but solid states are known to be the fastest. Obviously, within that, there are slower and faster ones, but solid state by far is much faster than other three.
Mm.
What is the role of power supply unit? Power supply unit.
Provide power to components.
Yes, more power. Which port is typically used for network cables?
uh, is it the network cables, the Ethernet?
Correct. Nice. Which of
Had set up
these?
my own Ethernet at one point.
Well done. Yeah, and using Ethernet cable over Wi-Fi is much better solution in general for stability as well as the speed. Um, I went through extra steps in the house to set up my machine to be connected with Ethernet rather than Wi-Fi. So that's a pretty good practice to do if possible. Which of these is use print documents? Sorry.
Printer.
I don't, yeah. What is BIOS stand for? My goodness.
This is the first time I'm seeing this.
Do you know what BIOS is?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No.
so it's not. Well, it still is used term. Technically, what you now see is not really a BIOS, so I guess this is a little bit controversial. But if you the term is interchangeable to the thing that you see before your computer starts. You know how sometimes when you're booting your computer, especially on either, not on the Mac side, but if you turn it on your computer, Lenovo, for example, it shows like a little logo. And sometimes on the bottom it says hit delete key or F8 or something before. If you hit those key, you actually go into BIOS, and that's when you can set up different things or set your computer in different settings. Usually, it's a internal sort of processing, or I guess it is sort of a before the operating system kicks in, your computer is configured in that manner. Sometimes it has a power management. Some of more advanced hardware configuration is all done on there before the operating system kicks in. So that's what BIOS is. Whether what that stands for, I've never looked. So I'm gonna have to guess on here. Um,
Well, based
basic
on that, I would maybe say um, basic internal output storage
internal
or
output.
backup interface operating software.
It's not really a storage. That's my guess. And binary integrated operating signal. That sounds very fancy, but
Hmm.
doesn't fit the bill either. Basic input output system. Backup interface operating software. I have actually no idea. None of them sound right to me. I'm gonna get this
Maybe
one wrong.
the
Um,
last one, maybe a backup interface operating software.
It is an interface, so I like that term, but I don't like the term backup.
Yeah,
Okay, let's get this one wrong.
I feel like
We're
it's okay.
determined. Yes. Which device allows you to store files and plug into USB port?
Flash drive.
Yep.
I
Flash
can't
drive,
remember the
thumb
last time I
drive.
used.
I
I never
know.
use those.
Yeah. I never liked the term flash. That sounds like temporary drive. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Which hardware part usually includes fans and prevent overheating?
Well, aren't all of these in the one?
Usually includes fan.
Would it be the power supply unit?
Yes, they
But they're
actually.
all in the box together.
I know, but what this one is talking about is desktop, not the
Mm,
laptops. So
okay.
I think that's where you get a little bit of mixture. This one you can see the power supply, but in here there is actually a fan, usually on this side. So I oriented it so that it takes air and then
Mm,
pushes out that way. But the inside of this box there is a fan, and that's what it is referring to, not like a laptop power supply. What is an optical drive read? What does an optical
optical
drive read?
makes me think of my eyes.
This one is CD and DVDs and it's so outdated. It's
Wow.
yeah. Optical
Optical.
disc is a CD. Optical drive. Let's
So
see.
optical is just a name, another word for CD.
Did we get all of them right? What's a BIOS? Did we get? Oh, okay.
Oh.
It's a basic input output system.
It was-
Okay, fine. I'll get that wrong. But we got
oh
all of them
wow.
right.
Man, it was just that one.
Yeah, I know. I was determined to get that one wrong.
And you did.
Yes, we succeeded. So
Yes.
we're good. I'm glad we did good.
Yeah.
19 out of 20. Good job. I'll give you a high five there.
Thank you. I feel like
um,
you did most of it, but it's okay.
no, just take it. All
Take
right.
it and run.
Yeah, so there is a bit of a difference between laptop and desktop in general. And it's kind of important to understand that people have this understanding of, yeah, you have a desktop, or it used to be desktops with keyboard and a mouse and a monitor. And then you go and then just turn it into this flappy thing that opens up and it has a monitor and the keyboard and a mouse and a trackpad, and magically became smaller and smaller and became powerful and all of that. Mostly true, but unfortunately there are limitations when you go and then just put it into a little tiny thing. Here's my laptop, my choice of laptop that I carry when I'm going outside of this my office space. When I'm on travel, this is a laptop that I use. I can certainly endorse this brand because they've been good with me, and I like this specific laptop. And I plan on doing review, or I planned on doing a review of this laptop for a very very long time, but I haven't got around doing that. But anyways, um, uh, in general, laptop, because it is small and because it is in this kind of very thin, everybody boasts this thinness of a laptop. When it's mobile and when it's this thin and light, it fights against performance. It introduces a couple of things, and I think the biggest factor on laptop is, or biggest limits on laptops over general desktop, that is this boxy thing, is the fact that it's limited by power, overall power that it can take, and limited by overall heat or cooling that is possible on the machine. Other than that, yes, as you make things smaller, it is more expensive. That's in general. This is not a jewelry. Big rock is not more expensive and smaller. It actually goes the other way. So things that are smaller are generally more expensive because of amount of engineering that goes in it. But at certain point, you have to really consider those two big limitations. And a lot of people and customers of buying laptops don't think that way. They just feel like, okay, technology has improved enough to make giant boxes into a small flapping laptops. Um, so what power limitation is like is your Desktop could utilize anywhere between, in average, I would say 3 to 400 watts of power in general out of those power supplies. The power supply that I was showing here, this one I believe was 800 watt, and these two machines are relatively performant machine, and I currently have 800 watt unit as well. So any people looking to do a lot of gaming or a lot of renderings and having a lot of graphical horsepower or processing horsepower, then they would need much higher power supply. You already see this. Like, okay, in average, your business, typical Dell HP computer that you get off of Best Buy, for example, 3 to 400 watt, and it would be fine with it. And you're surfing web, doing emails, not a problem if you're just doing googling and stuff, and that would be fine. But in a laptop, it's usually limited to 100 watt of power. Even the most amount of I've seen up to like 200 watt, but USB-C type charging these days that you do on a laptop only goes up to 100. There are some custom that are still going up to like 150, but like these big, thick gaming laptops of the past, they used to have like power bricks that are this big, and they're not USB Type C, obviously, because USB Type C can only carry up to 100 or 150 these days in average. I'm saying in average because there are other ones that are actually capable of driving more power these days, but in average, they carry up to 100 watts of power, for example, like MacBook. Um, but the ones with the big chunky brick that you carry around, and there's some I've seen some like Alienware laptops that requires two of giant brick to be connected, and that is to break off from that 100 watt or 200 watt or 300 watt limitation because it's that power hungry. So you're carrying another size of a laptop by that point.
Yeah.
So, do you really want to be mobile at that point? Isn't it better off that you just have a machine that you can just let it stand and then draw as much power as you want? I mean, 1,000 watt power supply is not uncommon. So, you're limited by power, and especially when you're off from the wall. And good luck because you got to get all of that power from your itty bitty battery that is inside of the laptop. Often, like half of your bottom chassis is your battery, not anything else. That needs a lot of power, and that is going to start generating heat as well, especially when you start using them. And that's also what laptop struggles and where the limit really kicks in. So you have in a desktop like this, you have fans that are half the size of the laptop really, and it is able to blow and move a lot of air and therefore cool it down. You've got these big thick radiators that actually has water inside and circulates the heat inside of your machine. So what it is doing, CPU is generating a lot of heat, and then it is the hot water goes into this radiator, and these fans are pushing air and pushing it out of the machine. This is basically your HVAC machine and working to cool it down. In the laptop, that is very, very limited. Your HVAC system cannot be as moving as much air. It needs to go through these tiny little vents that are in there, and you can't be feeling as cool when we're just pushing. And not to mention the noises that it needs to make. Some laptops, when they're working, it sounds like an airplane taking off. And yeah, you don't want that, and you're limited by those type of things. So those are the two biggest things when it comes to laptop. Um, they are limited by, and there's really just really hard ceiling that you can't break off of, whereas in desktop all of those can be Well, heck, you can open up a side panel like this and you can move all air you want. And it's going to be able to cool much easier and quieter. When this machine is running, you can't hear any fan turning because it's just able to push that much of air without much of a problem. Any questions so far?
I have two.
Yes.
Two questions. So the first one is going back to either the laptop. If what would you recommend is like a good in between, I guess, amount of watts on a laptop that wouldn't drain your battery, but or need a lot of power, but actually gets the job done that you could be mobile? Like, would there
A
be an in
lot of
between?
laptop nowadays span somewhere between 65 watt to 100 watt charging brick. So I would say the modern MacBook or modern laptop like this are able to take 100 watts of power, but that is just charging the battery. And typical laptops has limitation of 100 watt. It's not like every laptop's the same and they can tune it differently from the BIOS, or the manufacturer will tune it differently. Different. So the I was gonna get into this a little bit later, but different type of CPUs actually draw a different amount of power, and the CPUs that go on a laptop is actually not the full fat version of desktop. They are purposely made so that they draw less power. Therefore, it's not as performant as the one that goes on a desktop. They basically put a limiter on them so that it performs relatively better with lesser power. Because if you were to put regular desktop CPU inside of the laptop, then it is expecting more power and it is just going to struggle. So they put something that is efficient and not necessarily cheaper, but it is efficient enough to perform with less of a power. It's like getting a big truck with V8 in it versus V4. You don't want to put V4 on a giant truck that needs to tow a lot of things. But if you get a little tiny hatchback and try to put V8 in it, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah.
Just size does not allow you to put that thing. So you've got to put in efficient, maybe electrical motor, or maybe a V4, maybe V3, or I don't know. Put something that is small enough yet get the job done, and that's what generally CPU is. So there's not really a selection that you can go for. Laptop is typically just all in one unit that you just have to buy. So you
Mhm.
can look at the CPU models and everything to figure out what your best target is, depending on the price point, but not really pick based on the power draw, I would say.
Okay. That's good to know. I feel like that's what my mind would go to first would be kind of the power, but
Mm-hmm. And when you see very thin and light type of laptop because of the cooling matter, you it looks sleek, it's beautiful, and you want to have it. But another thought that should cross your mind is, okay, but it's gonna actually struggle to cool down. It's gonna have a lot of more problem when it comes to cooling. So I tend to prefer to have at least a little bit of thickness. I would say this is about the thickness that I would go down to. If it is thinner than this, I have owned thinner laptops, and I actually have another laptop that is thinner than this, but it struggles to cool. And I feel I'd rather. I really don't need laptop lighter than this. There's a certain size, like the appreciation of thinness just gonna quickly goes away when my laptop is like taking off and it's trying to
yeah.
fly away from me. Um, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, my other question was back to the computer, the box with the fans. Um, you were talking about a tube where the tube, and you mentioned like water. This might be a bad question, but does water actually go through this? Is there actual water going through this, or is that
No.
just
So it's all well enclosed inside of the hose, and then also the radiator only. So
oh,
and they call this all-in-one air cooler or AIOs. So all-in-one. Why is it O? Gosh, I'm blanking out. It's AIOs. It's an all-in-one unit. That's why they call it AIOs.
Okay.
All-in-one liquid cooling. And what it is at the base of this block, they call it the CPU block. And so at the top of the motherboard is all the pins where you put the CPU onto the chip, very delicate chip onto. And then you put this cooling block, which is kind of looking like this thing over here. Can I draw on this? Yes, I can. This thing is a CPU block, and at the bottom of it is a metal plate. Inside of that metal plate in this black plastic is basically water chamber. The water never goes out from it, but the bottom of it is a metal. Therefore, it makes a contact with the metal top of a CPU. Because if you understand the CPU, the top of it, this is actually metal. The reason
Mhm.
for that is because so that the two metals needs to make contact so that they can exchange heat better. And then when the metal collects the heat, the water is going to collect that heat and then actually push it through one of these hoses. I don't know which one is a hot versus cool, but hot water is going to go through this radiator and then disperse inside of this tiny fins of radiator. And they're all in there,
Mhm.
and they're all enclosed in. No water is leaking out, hopefully.
Yeah.
But that's all within this block and the hose and this radiator, just like how car is.
Yeah.
And it's gonna start. And these fans are pushing air. In the case of a car, it's running, so it just takes intakes from the front grills. In this case, it's forced air, so that these fans are pushing air through these radiators, and then therefore it cools. And once it cools down, it goes back into the cool side of the hose, and then pushes back into CPU. So it just keeps on cycling,
Mhm.
therefore exchanging heat. Therefore, this hot CPU, they go up to 80 Celsius, and once it hits 90 Celsius, then it starts throttling. It can go up to like 100 before some CPUs nowadays run a lot hotter, but
Mhm.
generally you don't want to hit 100 degrees. And once it starts hitting 100 degrees, then it starts to throttle and be not as performant as it used to be until it can actually cool down. So, and the longer that you can push without cooling issues, CPU is just going to perform more and more and more and more. And often laptops cannot really hit that ceiling of like, I can't run anymore before it reaches the highest temperature. And then that's why it cannot perform as much as it would. Usually the two limitation, it's going to become either too hot or too much of power needed to keep on running. Whereas in desktop, those limits are a lot higher. So you're probably going to hit the limit of, yeah, it can't cool down anymore as well, but that is much, much taller a ceiling than what you would hit on desktop. But yes, you're never going to see water gushing down somewhere. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I have owned AIOs for many years. I have not seen water anywhere. But there are cases like if you gouge a little portion of this hose, then yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
have water leakage, and you do not want that.
Yeah.
But these are much easier to install, whereas there are. How do I clean this up?
Do
Uh,
you put the water? So how does the water get there?
so you buy these things.
Oh.
Let me see.
It's not like hooked up to a hose outside, like part of your plumbing.
I
It's not.
guess Amazon's the easiest to kind of look through, but here, AIO cooler. And they just come with water in them, and you can get colorful ones
Mm.
if you'd like. But you get fancier one with like a display and a temperature and everything. But these things are pre-filled with water,
Oh.
so you don't need to worry about it. Whereas there are custom water cooling computer.
So this would be maybe something that would have to be changed occasionally or
No, they actually run pretty well. Whereas
mm,
these actually you have to fill, like they made the hose or the tubes themselves, and they
mm,
fill it in with these colored water so that they can light it up to the color they want and become very, very fancy. But you have
oh
to bend them. The hard tubing, there's a flex tubing, there's, I don't know, rabbit hole that you can go through. But it's generally these are much harder to do and a lot more expensive. This is a definitely hobbyist grade of things.
yeah.
If you want to pimp your computer, you can certainly do that this
Yes.
way. But and you will definitely need to, there's a reservoir. You literally pour water on this so
Oh.
that it can actually exchange water. But I don't want to go through that, and the reason why I can without is because of these AIO coolers. There are just radiator and a block, and then you just install them, and I don't need to worry about it. I've run same AIO for 4 or 5 years. As long as you clean the blades of the fans and the radiator, I haven't had water issues.
Mm, that is really cool. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, and they are pretty cheaply available. Like, they weren't terribly expensive. Some of the ones that I have are less than $100, and
Yeah.
uh, it's much cooler and quieter than typical laptop-like situations. So, uh, it's definitely a good route to go to.
Yeah.
Very good questions, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next up was Apple versus Windows. In the field of architecture, I've seen Windows more so than Apple. Yes, I love the designness and the fanciness of Apple, but a lot of softwares that we use only work on the Windows side, unfortunately. So we often just end up using Windows in general. For example, like let's say AutoCAD. I think it was my student or after my student graduation that they released a Mac version of AutoCAD. So you can use, but for example, Revit does not work on Mac. SketchUp works on Mac. And a lot of people use Mac on SketchUp side, whereas Revit only works on Windows. So uh, yeah, you have sort of the limited selections when it comes to OS. So I've seen more on Windows in especially this field of architecture and interior design on Windows side. The hardwares are also different. Like the basics are the same, but Apple makes their own hardware, whereas Windows can just be built by off-the-shelf parts and then just kind of put together. It's like, I don't know, you can't put third-party parts into Tesla. Apple is very much like it, and you just buy the whole package and hope that you never have to fix it. Whereas more DIYer's dream is more like the Windows side where you can swap out parts. Unfortunately, that is not necessarily the case for laptops. Laptops are much like phones. When something breaks, you just kind of get a new one rather than trying to replace a part because it's a headache to get into. Although some laptops are better in terms of repairability and you can just open a couple of screws and get into. But MacBooks, for example, like you have to go through hooves in order to replace parts, and you have to go through these certified repairers, and yeah, it's a lot more difficult. So you have to kind of consider as you get more familiar with these things, where do you want to invest your money into something that you can repair yourself, or you just don't want to bother? But again, kind of going back to my initial sort of analogy or metaphor of like you're using this day and night,
Mm,
potentially more than 8 hours a day. Do you not want to learn how to maintain it yourself and be better at where your investments are? So that's sort of my sort of countering argument. But yes, there may be delivery driver who's not wanting to change their oils in their car. I'm not. I don't want to. I'll pay somebody to change my oils, or But at least, I don't know, put on a spare tire, learn how to put a spare tire if I get a flat. Maybe you can go down to at least that extent of being able to maintain your machines. Like if RAM stick blows out, or you know your memory is not working, then replacing memory stick on your machine is really not that difficult. You just have to put a lever, pull out a lever on one side, and that stick just comes out, and then you can replace it the same grade and on there, and you close up the panel, and easy, you're good to go. Obviously, you don't want to open up other more difficult things, but there are things that you can certainly perform on your machine to either upgrade or repair things like that. And I'm sure you have somebody that you know that knows a little bit of this, so that you can get help with. So I don't know. My recommendation is do a little bit of study and learn a bit more. Is general recommendation to the public of mine.
So does Mac not have like that computer base that you just showed us of yours? They don't have.
They used to, and even the Mac Pro has this sort of desktop like chassis as well. But the problem is the repairability. Their parts are not like off the shelf parts.
Mhm.
So things don't fit together. Or even if you put like some compatible parts, those are not really compatible, or the software does not support it. So if you want to upgrade, then you just have to buy outright the upgraded version when you first buy the darn thing. You can't upgrade after the fact, which is a struggle because, you know, these days, yeah, you have to buy the phone with a specific storage, right?
Yeah.
You can't just upgrade later on. But whereas if you get a desktop like this, then when you get, and then you turns out I'm struggling with the amount of RAM that I have or storage that I have, then you can actually upgrade down the line. It's not a problem. You just have to invest a bit more money and then replace the part you have. Or sometimes you have a machine with more RAM slots that are empty, and you can just put more in to have more RAM. So those are alternatives that are available on desktops, whereas in cases of laptop or Mac in general, those options are not available.
That makes sense. I didn't know that either. Because
Yeah,
I feel like Mac has, or they have everything. It seems like they have everything, and it's the small things that really matter.
yeah. Let me show you. So this is the, I guess, the desktop version of Mac or Mac Pro these days, and they have these things, and their components are not like off the shelf that you can get it elsewhere. You have to buy from them, and you can't really upgrade after the fact. You just have to buy. So I don't know. It's a very set type
Hmm.
of business.
This is what it looks like. This isn't like the shell. I feel like it's empty. It feels empty.
Well, yeah. They don't necessarily utilize all of these bays. I heard that you can get like storage to attach on these. So yes, you can utilize some of these PCIe slots. But yeah, that's the motherboard,
Okay.
and things are already on there. You can't really replace as
Hmm.
easily as you could on some other parts. If you consider it like they only have like the OEM parts, and you can
Yeah.
only buy from them. You can't get a custom DIY parts or third party parts and configure it however you want. I
Yeah.
mean, same thing for any Windows laptop too, but um, Mac side in general, everything is very limited in terms of repairability and upgradability.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I kind of touched on this, but uh, I wanted to describe the difference between the CPU and GPU. GPU is graphical performance, whereas a CPU is a computation in general. And without GPU, you can't nowadays. So I'm kind of explaining this in the current within 10 years or so, or 10, 15 years or so. Laptops became better because they put a kind of crippled version of GPU inside of the CPU. So CPU nowadays does GPU. When I say nowadays, I'm speaking back like 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. So like laptops needed CPU and GPU, and that's why it was more complicated to configure everything. But nowadays, CPU often has a little portion of it dedicated for graphics performance. Therefore, it negated the need for actually having a graphics card. That's why you start hearing this term discrete graphics card, or designated graphics card, or an actual graphics card. Like, because you can have a crippled version of graphics even with the CPU alone. And a lot of laptops are like that. My laptop here does not have a discrete graphics card. It does not have a graphics card. The graphics performance of this laptop is solely dedicated for the crippled version of graphics card that is inside of the CPU. And that is the case for a lot of Mac or MacBooks as well. And when you need serious amount of graphical performance, such as renderings, then you need a discrete or dedicated graphics card. And that's why you need to often think about graphics card when it comes to architecture. If you're using SketchUp, Revit, you do not need graphics card. It can still perform very well within the realm of CPU. The itty bitty graphics card inside of the CPU, or integrated graphics, that's what they call it, can perform pretty well with Revit. And nowadays, less so with SketchUp, as it is SketchUp 2025 has some more graphical features in it that requires better graphics performance, but it can still work pretty well with CPU alone. In generally these days, and I'm speaking in general. But when it comes to rendering, like Enscape, Envision, Lumion, Twinmotion, D5, if you touch any of these softwares, then you need a dedicated graphics card or discrete graphics card inside of your machine. And that can be, yes, something like this that goes inside of your desktop, or a completely separate chip that is inside of your laptop. And that's why you see a huge bump when it comes to a dedicated graphics card inside of your laptop. Those laptops become much thicker. It requires much more power and a separate brick, not a USB C type of charger. It needs bigger charger to. It often has. Mine has. Hold on here. This is a charging brick of one of my more performant laptop that is over there. And like, you need one of these, not a smaller charger that provides 100 watt. This one is rated for, I believe, like 200 watts or something. So those more graphic performant laptops are much higher output or input than these type of non-dedicated GPU laptops.
So say if I bought a computer and it has no graphics card, I won't be able to do renders, or they just won't be good renders.
Depends on the graphic. Depends on the software. Some software can do like a light version. For example, for the longest time, Enscape will not run. Like, they will say, no, you don't have a graphics card that's meant to do it. Lumion will struggle to even get to the first screen if you don't have a graphics card. And things kind of change every now and then. And yes, these days CPU came very, very far in terms of graphical performance, especially on the Mac side. Not to throw more mix into the water, but especially on the Mac side, M1, M2, M3, M4 chips became graphically just significantly better than ever before. And There's a lot of people who uses MacBook for Enscape rendering because it is capable of doing that, and Enscape kind of boasts in that regard that they support Apple devices and also able to use Apple CPUs, non-desdedicated graphics card, because MacBook laptops don't have the uh, dedicated graphics card to perform with. So
Hmm.
um, a lot of MacBook users are just having the M1, M2, M3 chips, and they can actually render with those chips. So that's sort of an outlier. But in general, yeah, if you only have like Intel or AMD CPU, then you will not really be able to render at all.
Hmm.
You have to have some meaningful graphics card. And I say meaningful graphics card because there's some graphics card that are not really built enough to be capable of doing rendering. And that's why you got to look at the hardware recommendation of each renderer or the software that you're looking to run and see what are the recommended graphics card for their software. So for example, because you use Lumion, right?
Yeah.
Hardware requirements. So go through Lumion and hard system requirements. And here, Lumion View, they require graphics card, ray tracing, integrated GPU is okay. And then this is a Intel R card, which is kind of outlier at this point. AMD Radeon or so it is saying you could use integrated GPU. Integrated GPU means it's like a CPU bound graphics performance for Lumion View. However, I would think Lumion Pro requires a dedicated graphics card. GPU scoring. So you can look at a different. This is a benchmark, but such as NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060. 1060 is pretty cheap. Like it's a uh, low grade kind of graphics card. Quadro K6000 AMD. So these are the three different companies' graphics card that they're talking about. But that's a minimum requirements.
Mm.
When you look at recommended, then you start talking about 3060 of RTX or Quadro RTX 2088. These are all model numbers that probably doesn't mean anything to you.
I'm like, it's gibberish.
It is. It really is, and that's why it's like so daunting for people just
Yeah.
coming into this for the first time. It's so hard to learn all of this, but let's don't worry about these because they change all the time. I tend to lean towards NVIDIA GeForce card because they have been kind of standard for a long time. Don't worry about Quadro cards; they are commercial grade and very very expensive. And frankly, I don't like them. But don't tell other people that I said that. But 3060 recommended. If you look at desktop graphics card, these are off the shelf $350. Whereas or $300. Whereas if you were to buy a laptop without one, you can't really fit that later on.
Hmm.
And let's say you bought a machine with 1060 GTX 1060 in it, and you bought a machine with it because you didn't want to spend $300 on it. And turns out you can't really run the Lumion the way you wanted it to be. Then you
Yeah.
can just buy the $300 graphics card and go back to your machine and pull this portion out and swap it.
Mm. But you can't do that with a laptop. Like it's
No,
just like the computer.
right. And that's
Okay.
the reason why, like, yes, you can always go back and, yeah, sell off the part that you had and to
Hmm.
recoup the money and spend. This one is 3070 Ti for reference. This is my older machine. My current machine uses 3070 Ti Super. Sorry, they don't make these names easy.
Like
Uh,
I feel like that sometimes with cars. And
yes.
so like with the different numbers,
Yeah.
there's always like a random number in it that I just like don't I don't know what it means. And then
Yeah. Uh, any of, well, for your benefit, because you are interested in graphics card, because you do utilize it, I would say always look for NVIDIA GeForce RTX or GTX and the next number, this one. And I can depict, because NVIDIA GeForce cards are very popular and a lot of software utilize that. And that is where I utilize as well. Sorry. So you're going to see that all the time. And yes, that's the reason, probably the reason why they mentioned this the first time on their recommendation list. So don't worry about GTX, but it says GeForce 1060. 1060 means, so it's a 10 series every other year or so. Every year or every other year, they go up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I think they're up to 50 now. So this was long time ago generation. And then each, it's like 3 series car or 5 series car or 7 series car or 9 series car. So the more number here, the better it is. So each generation, basically, as they up, it's much like, so not always true and probably not true all the time, but a good picture that you can kind of draw here is as 2060 is made, 2060 is better than 1060 because it's a later generation, but it's the same tier. But so 2060 is going to perform as good as 1070. Do you get that picture? So let me just kind of draw here. So 1060 was recommended, right? As this goes up, the next tier will be, next generation will be 2060. But 2060 is probably about the same as 1070, the previous generation, but one more tier up. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
When they put the designation of TI, it's probably half step up. It's like 0.5. TI is 0.5. And then when they put a designation of super, this is like iPhone Pro Max, Pro Max. Every time it's like a half step up. So when they say something like super, that's again another step up. So it's like point, or I guess it's a 61 in that case. Sorry, this is all becoming very jargon. But so I had 1080 before.
Okay.
And then next generation, when I got it, I got 2080.
Okay.
And then the next card I got was 1080 Super. And then I moved up to, well, I was like, that's performant enough, but I just want to utilize the most recent generation of cards. So next card that I moved up to was 3070 Ti, which was this card, 3070 Ti. And then after that, I was like, oh, that's good enough for me. But I want to, again, utilize the most recent features of these cards. So my current card, this card actually right here, is 4070 Ti. Sorry, that's not how you write T. Ti Super. And it has a really great features that I have, and that's why I have been enjoying my machine in this case. But that's 4070 Ti. That's not the most recent card. Sorry, writing with mouse is hard. But and now they have the 50 series as well. But those two numbers will basically tell you the current gen or the generation of the card, and then the tier of the card. So generally in the range of 60, 70, 80 range in terms of the tier is pretty good with more performant type of cards there. So you can see it's a really long old card because it's a 10th generate or 10 for the generation, and then it is 60, so it's like sort of entry level, whereas the next one will be more recent generation or 60, right? And then if they high-end requirements, we'll probably jump that up to 30 generation, and then 90, which is
Okay.
highest tier that it can go to. And
Is that the same for all the different graphics card that they're suggesting? So is that, or are
no,
they
the
all
designation also changes as it compares. They have something. These are technically quadro cards. These are commercial grades card. Uh, that's probably another topic for another day. This is a rabbit hole you probably don't want to touch into. But and AMD has a completely different naming scheme as well. They can't figure this darn thing out. Can't we just go in sequence?
yeah,
Like don't
it make it
don't
easier.
do Apple iPhone 7, 8, 9, 11. Like, why did you skip this number? Like, don't
Yeah.
skip numbers and
Yeah.
figure out what you want to do. But no, they don't, unfortunately. They just have to shuffle it around so that nobody knows what they're buying. Um, this is often a chart that I utilize very often. So videobenchmark.net, and it's a pass mark, it's a benchmarking tool and whatnot.
Okay.
But if you look at just a high-end video card, because that's the only ones that are really relevant, but it ranks them. This is not always true for
Okay.
all softwares, but in average, in general, this is a good visual picture of where your graphics card stands. So and it has these numbers to it. So you can kind of compare, okay, is 2060 actually better than 1060 by how much? Or is 2050 comparable to 1060? Like, where does it stand? And this will tell you that. So, for example, I can search RTX 4070 Ti Super. So you can see my Ti Super is ever so slightly better than Ti
Mm.
in terms of number, like not by a whole lot. I
Yeah.
probably was okay with Ti because there's not a huge difference. But did I get a better one than say 40, no, or 3070? Yes, because my 4070 Ti is up here with um, say 31,000 or 31,700, whereas 3070 Ti that I used to have is 23,000. So you can certainly see I bumped it up a little bit there.
Yeah.
And the one that I used to have is 2080 Super, and that is 19,400. And then before that, I was 1080. I had not 1080 Ti, but the one after 1080 was like 15,500. So you can see that it is starting to slow down, or lower
Yeah.
down as I go back in history. And you can also look at things like, okay, well, recommended. So Quadro RTX 2000. I have no idea what that is, as you do. Quadro cards are not recommended in my personal opinion, but
Okay.
they kind of have to recommend here. So if we were to look at that one, it's not even showing up. Quadro. Why are you not showing up? Quadro RTX 2000.
Think I see a 5,000.
Yeah.
Did I see that?
So it's not even like high grade to show up here, maybe.
Yeah.
So like Quadro 4000 is 15,000 here. This is recommended hardware. Oh,
Wow.
it's a ADA. Anyways, and if you go to the high end cards, then NVIDIA RTX 6000. Okay, that one I can look for. Probably has it. Yeah. So that one is comparable to, but still less than 4070 Ti
Yeah.
Super that I have. So I can see, okay, even if you get this card, it's not going to be as performant. And you can see the price point for this one. If you were trying to get this, it's a
Yeah.
whole lot more expensive than what I paid for 4070 Ti Super. So
Yeah.
you can look at those performance differences and as well as looking at the prices, and you can just fit that into your machine and upgrade your machine.
Yeah.
yes, there is a bit of a requirement when it comes to when you had 1060, for example, in here, the itty bitty older card, it's not gonna have as much of a power draw than this card. This is gonna draw a lot more power, therefore you need better power supply. But
Mm,
again, you can replace your power supply from say 300-400 watts to 600 or 700 or 800 like this one.
yeah.
You can swap that out too. It is a little more harder, I would
Okay.
say, in terms of replacing versus replacing a graphics card because you have to kind of mess with all of these bundles of wire that are in the back. So hopefully the machine that you have has enough of power already for
Yeah.
you to fit a better graphics card. And another thing is, better graphics card may be bigger. These things can be quite as big as like your laptop. Like they're like 3 times thicker than your laptop,
Wow.
and they're as big as this laptop. So it can be quite big and bulky, and it may be the case that it does not fit inside of your machine.
Mm,
But this was relatively compact machine, and that's why it has this limitation. But again, it has much lesser issue with the size and also the heat and also the power draw. Like for example, this case would have fit a card that was larger than this or thicker than this. So this case was a lot more accommodating. And the case is only $80. So like if you need bigger case, you can buy bigger case. And
yeah.
that's the thing. Like with desktop, you can upgrade your way as you need bigger or better things.
That's great. Very versatile.
Yeah. In terms of graphics card, it's just really tiny laptop that goes inside, and it has its own memory. It has its own power draw. So it really it's a card, but it's really a laptop that just goes in there without the screen and the keyboard attached to it. So there's a talk about VRAM. VRAM is the amount of memory that it has. Your computer has a memory. So that's a difference between there's a distinction between memory versus storage. You know, the storage is a long-term storage, whereas a memory is your tool belt we
Mm-hmm.
discussed. But there is a tool belt that's needed for graphics card. You can kind of see it's like a tool belt around this chip
Yeah.
GPU. So this is a GPU unit, and there's a tool belt around it to. So when you load a large Lumion model, for example, it needs to dump all of that model data on this tool belt, and that tool belt needs to be large enough to handle your complex geometry that you're bringing inside of Lumion. Lumion actually tells you how much of a VRAM usage you have. So, for example, my graphics card has 16 gigabytes of VRAM.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, the chances of filling that up is pretty slim. But when I had 1080 graphics card, the lower grade, the older graphics card, this had only 8 gigabytes uh, of VRAM. And if I load a large model, it can actually fill this up. And if it does, then it just outright either stop or become very, very sluggish and slow because it needs to now then offload between the big shelf versus the tool belt. So and Lumion is known for filling up the VRAM quite a lot. So that's why I was using it as an example. But yeah, like depending on complexity of your model, you may need more than 16 as well. And then you need to get better graphics card that has more VRAM as well. VRAM is not the speed, it is more of a capacity, but in the world of rendering, VRAM is very, very important. That's why I just wanted to point that out. In the world of gaming, typically the speed is more important than capacity. Whereas in the world of rendering, capacity is quite more important because you're not looking to, do find out the enemy in the corner that is like
Yeah.
aiming at you. You're not talking about that. You're talking about just standing there for just a little bit so that you can
Yeah.
gauge whether this shot is correct or not. So
Yeah.
the way we kind of work is different from the world of gaming, and that's why we want to consider different things when it comes to graphics card. And this is a main board or motherboard,
Okay.
and there are different parts to it, but everything connects to it. And graphics card will connect either there or there, just kind of in this manner as you saw earlier.
Hmm.
And this is the back of where all the USB ports and everything will connect to, including the display and everything. Like HDMI port will be all in there. And then this is where that memory goes. And I utilize two, but some people can utilize four or add more if they'd like. So
Okay.
you typically see either two or four slots available, and you can utilize however you want. So, for example, let's say 16 gigabytes of memory is not enough for you, or 8 gigs is not enough, then you put 8 more, therefore you become 16 or 32 or 64. So you can later put in more or swap out the ones you had. So that is something that I've done many times. Like
Yeah.
I've had 8 gigs before and it wasn't big enough. I put in 16 total, and then that wasn't big enough. I swapped out the whole thing to be 64, and that's what I have now. And also, something good to know is, and this is what the discard. That's what the memory looked like. This is what this RAM or memory sticks look like, and you just take one of these and then just slot it in there. Is what you do. But I also wanted to show you something, and the thought just left my head. Oh yeah, when you right click on the taskbar, you get something like this.
Yeah.
And then when you click on here, the third icon or second icon, you can see the performance.
Yeah.
And performance, here you can see the memory. And memory, me streaming all of this and then PowerPoint and everything, it is utilizing 24 gigs of my memory. So this is how much my tool belt has been filled. So if you're reaching really the top of how much you have in terms of your memory, then you might want to consider upping your memory. Right
Mm.
now I have total of 64, and then 24 is being used. So I have pretty good headroom on my
Okay.
memory usage. But if you're always kind of topping out the top 80%, then you probably want to consider getting more memory for yourself.
Mm.
And
'Cause-
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because if you were to go over that, it would start to slow down. Like that would be probably one of the main issues that you ran
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. Computers nowadays have pretty good memory management, meaning, if it hasn't used one tool for a long time, then it will know to offload it on the shelf so that you have enough of memory. And
Mhm.
if it sees like, okay, we're going like 80% full now, then they're gonna start pulling out things so that they can store more. So they're pretty good with that. But as you need to go back to your long-term storage more times, it's gonna run slower. So if you're, not, it will probably never reach 100%.
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is, if you're reaching like 80% or so very commonly, then you're probably reaching and your computer is going a lot more back and forth than it needs to. So you probably want to look at getting more memory for yourself. And I emphasize memory somewhat heavily in the world of architecture because the size of your SketchUp model, the size of your Revit model actually needs to unload onto memory, just like how I was describing on the rendering.
Okay.
So the more tabs you open on Chrome will eat up your memory. But in the world of 3D modeling, your model's size kind of dictate how much of a memory that you end up using or how many PDFs that you have open will dictate how much memory usage you have. So memory is kind of important because we open a lot of application that eats memory away. So more so than storage, I would weigh heavier on memory because we don't require a huge amount of processing power. I generally think CPU is not a biggest concern for ourselves. Like we don't need more speed. Yes, faster computer better, but I think you can only be faster as how fast you can type and actually click
Yeah.
and draw. You're more limited by that than your processing speed, but you will be more limited. Like every click of your move will be slower if your memory is topping out, and I see that more often than your CPU being the bottleneck in general. So that's how you would kind of look at and figure out whether you have enough memory. Memory does have speed in question. So, for example, my speed is 6,000 mega transfer per second. That's very high number, and probably I don't need to be as fast as that. If you're somewhere 2,000, 3,000, you're still okay. That is still fast enough, and that's probably what you have in most of the majority of people.
Hmm.
But I would say at minimum 32 gig if you're architectural or design professional. 16 you might be able to get by. My laptop, not this one, but the other one has 16. I've been okay because I'm just doing light load. I'm not using I'm not pulling up like a complex model or putting a lot of PDF files on it. I don't do that on laptops. I do that on my desktop, which has a lot more memory. So you have to just kind of gauge yourself where is the most comfortable and where you want to invest a lot of money. And yeah, I decided that 64 should be plenty for my own. Maybe if you're the type of person who deals with a lot more complex models, then you might want to consider even going higher than this. But 64, I think, is generally enough for most people in this field.
Yeah. You make me think I should double check mine because sometimes mine's kind of slow and loading and movements. And now I'm like, I should probably double check my.
Yeah, and especially if you're since you're on laptop, another thing to check is your CPU could absolutely be the bottleneck,
Mm.
especially when it is hot. When it is running hot, then it's not going to perform as it should,
Mm.
and that's why you want to check uh, how much of a CPU usage you have and how much of a usage you have, especially when you're feeling a little bit sluggish.
Mhm.
You check on these things to feel out where your bottleneck is and how you can improve. Especially on laptop, there's not much you can improve on,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, but if it's a CPU and like you hear the fan running really hot and CPU is being the bottleneck, then you know for sure your laptop just needs to cool down somehow. So you probably get it off the ground or off from your lap that is suffocating the little vents that are on the bottom of your laptop, or put it like don't work off of your bed blankets, then
Yeah.
it's suffocating. You want to work off of a hard surface that is cool enough, or I don't know, blow a fan to it,
Hmm.
and it'll be much better off, and it can cool down better. Therefore, actually performs faster. You'll notice the difference.
Yeah. I've noticed like um, usually when I'm in office, we have like a computer stand that my computer can sit up. And then when I come home or work from home and it sits flat because I don't have that at the house, gets extremely hot. And then it sounds like it's going to take off and it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's about to go to on vacation.
Yep, yep. And it's working extra hard, but it is not actually being faster. It's
No.
actually slower because it's needing that much of a cooling, but it just doesn't have it. It's better to work off of metal surfaces because they are much better at transferring heat.
Mhm.
and also much better working on flat surfaces that some of these feet off of the laptop can prop it up so that these air vents can breathe.
Yeah.
They're usually intakes and outtakes. The output of air is usually gone through the sides and the back of the laptop. So you want to make sure these are well ventilated or able to breathe.
Yeah.
And sometimes when your lap is here, and then it can actually
Mm.
suffocate it. And also, if you're working off of like a pillow or blanket because you're enjoying your work from home life, then it can end up suffocating it too.
Yeah.
So those are things to be mindful of. They do have like you said, like a cooling pad, built-in fans and stuff to cool it down. But again, if you don't have that problem if you have desktops. So
Yeah.
I mean, desktops be can be loud, and it may not have as many fans if you don't consider things really well. You probably don't need all three fans, but more fans at a slow rate, spinning rate, can be a lot more silent. And small fans and small amount of fans that is spinning very, very fast.
Mm.
Usually, bigger fans are a lot more quieter.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we kind of touched on the storage, but these are you probably have you seen all three types of storage before?
No.
No? Okay. So,
Are
this,
these them? Because these all look different.
yeah, yeah. So, this one is a HDD or a hard drive disk. And this is probably the oldest type of drive.
Mhm.
And then solid state is this one. They made basically smaller version of this. You can see the back of this is the same as that one there because it's meant to replace these. But hard drive disks are much larger, cheaper for more data. It's just that slower and bulkier and not as durable as solid state. So it's like I don't know, getting a outside storage space, and things are not air conditioned. It's it's just not a good. It's not a good storage, but it's
Yeah.
good for junks, and you can get vast amount of storage. Whereas solid state, it is more expensive per amount of storage you can get. However, it is faster, and it does not eat a lot of power either. Actually,
Mhm.
when hard drives were in laptops, it was eating power because it needs to physically spin drives.
Yeah.
So there's more of a electricity it needs. So when it became solid state drives, it doesn't make noise anymore because hard drives actually you can hear it spinning and then it makes like a ticking noise as well. So that's no longer the case. These days, you don't hear those things because they're no longer spinning discs. And also, it became even further into these gum. This is as big as a gum stick.
Oh,
It's like this big. And actually,
crazy how much they can do and how small they are.
yeah, this is external drives, external hard drives or external storage drives. This is an enclosure for these solid state drives, and this is a solid state stick.
Oh,
This is how big it is.
wow.
So when it was this big thing, then it needed all the wires attached
Yeah.
inside of your machine. So you had to do all of these attachments. But these days, you get one of these gum sticks.
Mhm.
It's just as big as a gum stick, and then you can just put it on your motherboard or
Yep.
main board, and then you don't have to connect any wires or anything. You just put it in, and then just use one screw on it, and then you can just attach it, and then that's connected. You don't need to connect power. You don't need to connect any wire, and
Wow.
then your that just works as your storage,
Yeah.
long term storage,
Okay.
and it's small, it's more durable. You can throw this thing and still not be damaging it. Like the thing is, there's no physical moving part. So these
Yeah.
these are a lot more durable than hard drive disks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Would you use which one would you use? Like for you
Solid
yourself, for
state.
example.
So
Mm,
my machine has only solid state.
okay.
Two solid state sticks. Two of these sticks. One is
Okay.
my main drive where OS and everything is running. The other one is more of a storage, like backup or projects that I'm no longer working on, but archiving is on
Mm,
my secondary storage. So
okay.
they're both the same size. It's just that that's how I distinguish it. And then things that I need as a backup, like my live photos and kids' photos, and some of my music library that I archived, and also some of my very old projects and everything that I no longer need, but I need in storage somewhere. I
Yeah.
actually put it on a NAS server or network attached drives. And what it is like a little, basically, it's a small computer. And you can either build a computer for it or just get one of those NAS units off of internet, and then
Mm,
you put these hard drives in there because these are storage, like I said, the junks, long term, but it needs a lot of room.
yeah.
Therefore, I get I get large. I think they're both 8 terabyte drives, and then there's two slots to it. But those are actually identical copies. So, in case of, because these things break more often, I think in my life total, I have replaced or at least experienced 30 hard drives that's broken on me,
Oh, wow.
and all other parts of the computer, like such as monitor, motherboard, power supply, graphics card, everything. I think I've experienced total like one on each drive or each component, or just I've never had graphics card fail on me. I've never had motherboard fail on me. I've had monitor fail on me once. I had power supply fail on me once. Like, I have these broken experiences, but
Yeah.
it's just that hard drives, by far, it breaks all the time. And
Wow.
solid state drives, I think I've had total of two broken solid state drives. The failure rate on these are much lower than hard drives. And I've actually had one of those two broke on me. Therefore, I had to send for a replacement, and they sent me a new one. But because they're exact replica, that's called RAID. And because you RAID them, I can send one out and then have one be my good copy, and then they're gonna split again and then actually be identical copy again. And that's how they manage hard drives for
Okay.
long-term storage, and that's what I have at home. So I have. Let me see. Yeah. So if I could draw again. Sorry, this is becoming very long, but hopefully it is interesting.
This is so interesting.
So my main machine has two gum sticks, and
Okay.
then and in my NAS, I have two hard drives. I'm drawing this. I
It's
don't
pretty
know.
good with your mouse.
Yes, and then they're just 8 terabyte in total. And let me show you what that looks like. And it's actually in my technically my closet downstairs, and it's just inside of the closet, and so that I don't hear, but I
Mm,
can connect to it all the time. And if you, it was a Synology, and you get all variety of NAS or NAS, but mine is this one. So you get two slots, and then you get to buy whatever the hard drive disk that you want to get, and
okay.
then put them in, and it receives two disks, or sorry, two drives, and then you can fill it in with whichever you want.
Mm,
And you can set it up as a singular one so that it is 16 terabyte in total, but I've set it up so that they're just always copying each other.
Wow. And this gets loud, pretty loud, and that's why, or no, it doesn't get loud.
No, it doesn't really get loud. I'll notice it if I'm like late at night, nobody's talking, and then I'm next to the closet. But normally I don't hear. Yeah, and I believe a lot of companies do this too. They
Yeah.
just run NAS on their side, and some of these NAS can have different type of configuration. I actually have one external drive that is connected via USB on here, and that's really just a throwaway storage. So I kind of need it now, but I don't need. If that drive goes, then I can lose it. Kind of storage.
Yeah.
So that's why I expanded it into that. If I downloaded like a movie to watch or a TV show series that I bought that I wanted to just have a mass storage of, but I can always download it again, but it's just gonna take time to download that sort of thing. So then or if I have like a, you know how Lumion installation is really large, and
Hmm.
once you downloaded it, I put it in there so that I don't have to download it again if I need to install it somewhere else.
Mm.
But if I lose it, that's not end of the day, because end of the world, because I can download it again. It's just a little bit of hassle to download it
Yeah.
again. So um, yeah, I do have like a throwaway storage, what I
Yeah.
call,
Yeah.
on it too. But all of my family photos, archived projects, more long term
Mhm.
storage, I put it on here. And great thing about NAS is the fact that I can access it anywhere in the world as long as I have internet. So
Oh,
even,
that's cool.
yeah, even the family photos or archived project, I can still access it. I actually listen to my music that way too. But
Hmm.
again, that's more complicated thing. But to go back to my general setup is that on my computer, I rely on fast storage, fast and small storage, or physically small but pretty large storage inside of my machine. And then for long term storage stuff,
Yeah.
I rely on a NAS, and the storage is actually attached right there,
Okay.
there or there. Often these motherboards have like multiple places for your main storage, and you just peel this off, put it in there, and then put this heat sink. These things too do get hot when they're used a lot, and that's
Hmm.
why you need this metal heat sinks on them, but that's usually enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that kind of sums up. Are you using your Mac at this time?
I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, because
It's
some
just easier. I don't, it
I
doesn't
know.
it's not going to take off with the fans and
I know, and they configured those things really well and optimize it. So yes, they do work really well as well. It's just that, yeah, when you're trying to service it or maintain
yeah.
it, things become a little more troubling, and you may not get the performance that you
Yeah.
need. But in an everyday, more average type of usage, it gets the job done. Um,
I was going to say, usually I strictly use it emails, Photoshop here and there,
right.
but other than that, I don't use it.
Yeah, if you're, again, I love car analogy, and knowing what you drive, it makes it a little difficult to make all of these case.
I won't take anything personal.
No. But for disclosure, she drives a Tesla, right? So
Yep.
Tesla gets a lot of job done really well. And when you're going grocery shopping, or if you're going to meet your friend, it's probably the most convenient way to get there because it's got
Yes.
all of these features. But when you're trying to like tow a RV or a huge amount of thing, unfortunately, you can't do that. You need
Yeah.
a good size pickup truck for that kind of thing, hauling things. And When you're needing that, you can't really DIY your own solution. Or
Mm.
Tesla is known for needing service part like certified parts and needing those
Yeah.
type of. You can't really do DIY solution. You can't really jack up your suspension
Mm.
to have a bigger tire for make it look cooler. I don't know. It's the customizability or
Yeah.
repairability or upgradability or third party parts are not as available for Tesla because it's kind of like the world of Mac.
Yep.
Whereas if you're needing, I don't know, to pimp your ride and, and do all of the DIY or sort of stuff, then you can do on more of a desktop side.
Yeah. I'll say I'm never called if anyone needs me on the side of the road.
Yeah, but also you don't need frequent maintenance as internal
Yeah.
combustion engine. So that's the benefit of it. And
Yeah.
for average user, it kind of makes sense. So yes, you do have, but as a professional user,
Hmm.
you need a machine that you can kind of look after,
Yeah.
something that it is more performant. If you're I don't know, mobile plumber who needs to carry all the tools. I can't imagine that person being well, other than like a white giant van. you
Yeah.
you need a work van in order to work. So you need a performant car, or you need a utilitarian type of car. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Just using doing a bad analogy or metaphor, but I like using car analogy often.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people can relate though to it, so it's a good one.
Yep. All right. I think I've burned enough your time and someone else as well. Yeah. So there's really a lot to learn when it comes to computer, and I'm willing to answer any of the questions that you might have. If you're watching this on recording, then please do feel free to leave comments for any of the questions you might have. I can't recommend a specific hardware or um, a company or laptop or model per se, because everybody's needs going to be different. You may just need to go point A to B and get your groceries and meet your friends, but some people may need to do the plumbing business as we talked about.
Hmm.
So your needs are going to be different, and every brand is going to be different. I can't possibly recommend Hyundai, Nissan, Honda, GM, Ford. Like everybody's experience is going to be different. Some are going to be better with others than the others. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to recommend a certain brand or model, but I can tell you need at least, again, a car analogy, but at least like a V8 or V6 or V4, or is it going to be an SUV? Is it going to be a sedan? Like, is it going to
Yeah.
be a pickup truck? I can tell you which kind of spec that you should look for, especially something like a graphics card, or like how much of a storage you need, how much of
Yeah.
a memory you need. Like those type of recommendation I can certainly make and gauge your situation. Like, for example, for me, I have a working desktop that I do most amount of my task on. But when I'm going out on a site visit or travels, then I take this laptop with me. I need that. I can't carry this whole setup with me. So my situation is one desktop, one laptop, but laptop is not those beefy
Hmm.
gaming laptops that some of you carry around to get your job done. So that's my solution. But again, you may need to consolidate everything into one thing and do need that thick giant laptop. So I understand those aspects too, but you need to kind of kind of describe that to me and also ask, I'm doing these type of things and what kind of hardware do I need, or what type of graphics card do I need, or where do I look for that kind of information. I can certainly answer that type of question. So feel free to do that. Thank you, Autumn, for asking awesome questions and hearing me out for quite some time. And I'm, as you can tell, I'm quite interested and enthusiastic towards these type of matters, and I'd love to share and talk about things that I've learned along the way. So thank you so much for joining in. And next week, we're considering to talk about some of my site trips. Speaking of being mobile, so we're looking to talk about some of my site survey methods as well as usage of different gears. Again, we are talking about hardwares perhaps, but 360 cameras. How do I use my iPad on my site visits, and what do I do on my surveys? We're going to talk about that next week. So expect that to be on next week, Monday, 9 p.m. CST. Any questions?
No, I think I'm good. This was so fun, so informative. It was just, again, there's so much information you don't realize you need to know.
Right. Well, I'm glad, and I'll see everybody next week. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Awesome. That went really well.